Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for coming out. We were just discussing backstage the intricacies of the introduction, and I thought these people are all here to hear Suzan-Lori. They know who she is.
Yeah.
There is no reason for that. But
Or I'll start talking blah.
just start talking, and you'll keep us. But I mean, we of course are here to talk about a few things.
Yeah.
But in the immediate. How many people here have already seen White Noise, Suzan-Lori's play that is now up at the public? Okay, so there's enough that we have to be mindful of not giving
Yes.
too much of it away.
Oh, okay.
It's running through May 5th.
Yes.
At
And
the
if you
Public
want
Theater.
tickets, you have to sell one of your children.
You're going to have to sell a child.
It's a little tight in there, right? I mean, a little sold out.
It is,
But-
because we're in New York. But
Yeah.
so, well, all right, so then
It's okay.
we'll give a little away too then.
Yeah. Yeah, we will. I'll do a reenactment. I'm doing it right now. I'm starting right now.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the play.
Yes.
And then you should be getting your questions ready, and then we're going to have questions from you.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk some more about the great many other things that Suzan-Lori is doing in the world right now, including a new production of Native Son that is on HBO, including a band, including an upcoming series on Aretha Franklin. So we'll take 2 rounds of questions is the point. So get your first round about White Noise and the theater, and then we'll come back for other stuff. Sound good? All right, so let's start with White Noise.
Buckle yourselves in.
As I understand it, you've said that this play is something of a fairy tale.
Oh, did I say that?
That's what I'm told. What did you what did you mean by that? And if you don't remember saying it,
I don't
does it
remember.
ring true? And why does it ring true?
I don't remember. I am. Maybe because happily ever after is hard work. Maybe that's why I thought it was a fairy tale. Maybe because the real work begins at the end of the play. As challenging as the play is, the real work starts. Well, not when the curtain falls, because in that space there is not a curtain. But the real work starts when the lights go down and the actors are taking their bows. And the real work, you realize, oh, gee, the real work starts with me. Yeah. And so maybe that's why I thought it was kind of like a fairy tale. There are no frogs in the play. There's some kissing, and there's a bowling alley, but no one kisses a frog.
So there's a lot happening in this play, and I felt like the best way to start...
Although, I'm sorry, there kind of someone does kiss a frog. No, a turtle, but that's another level. Sorry. I know. So go
I'm
ahead.
going to give you an opportunity to talk about the turtle.
Yeah. Get to the turtle. Okay.
I feel like the best way to get into this
Yes.
is to introduce the people we meet in the story. So there are 4 people.
4 people.
They are in they've been in relationships of varying kind with one another for many years.
Yes.
They were old friends in college.
Yes.
But when we meet them, they're 2 interracial couples.
2 interracial couples. Yeah.
Let's start. So let's just walk through each of these people, and you introduce us to them and what they've got going on in the world. And maybe we should start with Leo.
Let's start with Leo. So
Who is Leo and what's going on
Leo
for him?
is he's the first character. He's the character that starts off the play, and Leo is a brother, a man of African descent in his 30s, who is a visual artist, and who has insomnia. And that's how he starts off the play. I can't sleep, all right, he says, while strangely enough sitting in a red chair. And all the chairs in the theater are red, pretty much. So that's intentional. So he has insomnia. He can't sleep. He can't sleep because years and years ago, when he was 5 years old, on an anniversary of MLK's death. He doesn't remember which one, but they were honoring that tragic day in a church basement, and a teacher of his, a school teacher, a science teacher, Miss Malvina, who also enjoys her flask. She comes up to him and says, "Leo, do you know that one day the sun that shines up above, do you know that one day the sun is going to go out and everything is going to go all black?" And he begins to get a huge case of anxiety, and he stays up at night wondering where the sun is. And this continues through his adult years. So that's Leo.
And he's, as a consequence, struggling with his art.
He's struggling with his art, because it's hard to, he can't sleep, and he tries all these remedies to get a good night's sleep. And what finally happens is his best friend, whose name is Ralph, who is a white guy, also in his 30s, all around the same age, gives Leo a white noise machine. That's where we get the title of the play, to help him sleep. And it works. Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't.
And then it becomes just a horrible sound in Leo's head. And he can't sleep, he can't work, he doesn't get any work done, and then his anxiety just starts to just escalate and escalate.
And then the next person we meet is Dawn.
Who
is Leo's white girlfriend.
Leo's white girlfriend, who's also a lawyer. Works as doing mostly work for folks who can't afford lawyers, so she's a do-gooder, you could say, and really believes in justice and really believes that she wants to do good for folks and doesn't want another young black man in prison. A wonderful person, the kind of person who you would want on your side if something difficult were to go down with you. And she's his girlfriend, and she cares for him. She cares a lot about him, but she doesn't want to marry him, which creates some
tension. And I gather she is struggling with, and all of these characters that we'll go through, they're struggling with identity questions as well. And it seems like she's struggling with this idea of herself as a white person who cares about the world, as a white liberal, seems to be explicitly what she's struggling with. Is that true? Is that what's going on?
We could say she's struggling with herself in the world. I say she's struggling with, how can I be a just person in this unjust world? How can I do the right thing when everybody else seems to be doing the wrong thing, and that seems to be all right for them? And she really she realizes that the social contract is broken. That basic human kindness that should exist between us, that's a wish maybe, but might exist between us. That contract that we could have between us is broken. Right. And that's the cause, that's the root cause of a lot of the difficulty that we have in the world today.
You mentioned that she won't marry Leo.
No.
Their relationship, and so this part of why I'm starting with these characters is that it feels to me like so much. It all turns on these relationships between these four people, and the way it all goes so wrong. It seems like the first thing that seems to go wrong is that so Leo has this run-in with the police, and Dawn wants to save him. She wants to. It feels to me like she wants to be his savior, and he doesn't want to be saved.
Well, she wants him to she wants him to get a lawyer up and sue the shit out of the police, right? And he's just so fucking sick and tired. He doesn't want his life to be like one of those biopics about, brother under the thumb of the man gets rescued by some white lady lawyer. He's just so angry. He's done everything right in his whole life. He's done everything correct. I mean, your last name is right, so you know what that's like.
I do.
He's done everything correct.
Infallibility is something that I'm very familiar with.
But he's a good guy, He went to college. He's got a career. He works hard. He's kind to people. And yet, he's done everything right, and yet nothing is all right. And that isn't all right. And that fills him with a great amount of anger at this point in his life, and he just doesn't want to challenge the cops and get all into that and do that. So he feels he's just at the end of his rope. I think he's at the end of he just doesn't see a way forward, really. None of them do. They've all four characters have been pushed into corners by the world,
So we'll get to how the big moment of him being pushed into the corner, but then let's quickly introduce the other two. So
Ralph, his best friend, a white guy who has inherited a chain of bowling alleys from his father. So Ralph is of means; he's got money. Little footnote down here: Ralph and Leo used to be on the bowling team in college. So they're great bowlers. And if you can imagine, we do have bowling in the play. So if you've never seen bowling in a play and you want to see bowling in a play, that's one reason to come to this play. And you would think that
there's
play
a lot
about,
of it's a significant amount of bowling.
There's a lot of bowling. There's a lot of bowling. And I learned just a couple of days ago that there's a book, maybe someone in the audience has read it, called Bowling Alone. Our director, Oscar Eustace, told me this just yesterday. I'm like, motherfucker, you told me this yesterday. Bowling Alone, in which I think a scholar, probably a sociologist, posits does someone know this? No, I hear yes. But posits the notion that one of the reasons why our social contract might be frayed is because of the collapse of bowling. You're nodding. Is this correct?
Of places where people can gather together, right?
And bowl. No. Which is my experience. That's why I was so deeply interested in bowling. My father was in the service. We moved all around the world, but wherever we went, especially in the States, there was a bowling alley and there was an opportunity to join, even if you weren't a great bowler. My parents were good, but they weren't great at bowling. And you could join and you could sit in those whatever they're called, banquettes like this, and you could eat the chips and perhaps drink a beer and while your friends stood at the line and attempted to hit down the pins. And it was a beautiful thing. And I would go with them and watch how they, newcomers in town, would make friends very easily and quickly with people of different races and social groups. And it was a lovely, lovely thing. And I would always be the kid who wanted to come on their parents' date night, which is kind of sad. But my brother and sister would be at home with the babysitter, and I'd be sitting there in the back watching my parents bowl. And so I put this, in a play.
But Suzan-Lori, this now I'm a little disturbed because
you're disturbed
because you make the bowling alley quite a dark place in this play. It is
really?
It's the place where the pivotal moment happens,
Sure.
where having Leo having felt broken in this way decides to sell himself into slavery.
Yes, he does.
As Ralph, his white friend's slave.
Right. Ralph's got because he wants to feel protected and respected, and he figures, fine. Then, and it's tricky. So this idea for the play came from another play I've written in 2014, Father Comes Home from the Wars. And so there was a moment in that play where the man in the 1860s said, the enslaved man was saying, okay, so in the future when I'm free and I'm walking home from work and a law enforcement individual comes upon me and I'm going to tell that law enforcement individual, I own myself. Because they'll say, who owns you? And you'll say, I'll say, I own myself. Will that be enough for them to leave me alone? And his friend says, gee, man, I don't know. And I sat there watching that play several years ago, and I said, I need to write a play about the future, which is now. And so that's how this play came about. So Leo in this play feels like he wants to feel protected and respected. And fuck it. I know how to do that. I'm going to sell myself to my friend, so I'm going to be his property. So it's just, again, an angry, desperate measure. And he says he'll do it for 40 days because after 40 days, he'll transcend this bullshit, he hopes, and find a way to just go forward in the world.
And what is it he's transcending? That's one of the things I'm struggling with. What did he think he was freeing himself of?
Well, sort of the undigested rage and despair. And I don't know, maybe you don't have, I don't want to speak for, again, there's no monothought in this culture, and there's certainly no black monothought, but I personally, and brothers and sisters I know, have a lot of undigested rage and despair. And interestingly enough, not just brothers and sisters, people I know of all races, classes, and persuasions. We carry around, the people I know. Maybe I just hang out with an angry crowd, a surly bunch, my friends, but we carry around a lot of feelings and we don't know quite what to do with them. We've all, I think, in this country, we've all been promised something, no matter what your race or your class or whatever. We've all been promised something. And the country is not delivering it equally to us. And so we've all got these undigested feelings. And he wants to process those feelings. And so he will take himself to the darkest place. Because like Freud or Jung said, the only way out is through. He's going to take himself through it, and he hopes to come to some kind of realization. He wants to feel his feelings and come to something, you know. And
so one of the, I think, really fascinating tensions in the story is between him and Misha, who was the fourth character, the first person we meet, who is Ralph's wife, who is Black woman, who is, it feels like taking a very different tack at the same thing. Can you tell us about what's going on with Misha?
Yeah, so Mish, who graduated Summa, so she in college graduated at the top of her class, so she's the smarty pants of the group, sister, who has decided that she is going to be an internet influencer, a vlogger. And so she has a show that she does once a week called Ask a Black. And she's online. She's probably, I'm looking at the clock because the show is running right now, she's probably online right now. And what people can do is you can call in and ask her questions. And so people call in from all over the country and ask her questions. So this is her attempt to digest some of those feelings, not just in herself, but in the culture, you know, by being sort of a representative of the race, and she's opening up a dialogue.
But she's quite an outsized representative, right? I mean, she's almost playing a caricature of herself.
Well, yeah. I mean, because her reasoning is that that's what people want, authenticity, and this is what authenticity looks like. I mean, I don't know about you, but there are, you know, sometimes certain ways of being of African descent are profitable and certain ways are less so, you know. I mean, if anybody in the audience have ever said, you know, like, for example, if you're born in New York and you have someone, whatever your race or class, whatever, and you have someone say, gosh, you don't seem like a New Yorker, like that. So now transpose that into being a person of African descent. Gosh, you don't seem like a Black person. You think, what does that fucking mean? Oh, so there's that. So she figures to be popular, she's going to heighten those mannerisms that are commonly thought to be part of the African experience. Just, you know, like, say, somebody who grew up in who wants to be authentic and wants to adopt some mannerisms that would be called from the hood, because that's what sells, you know.
I wonder about, I mean, in this, one of the things that I really took away, and so I'm going to see if you meant it.
Of course I meant it.
Is this tension between Leo and Misha, who are both kind of performing Blackness, right? Like, and so it feels like Leo has decided in selling himself into slavery to perform a version of victimhood, whereas she seems like she's performing strength. Right. Is that fair to characterize them that way? And can I ask, do you sit in any of that? Where do you show up in those characters?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think I can look at my day and perform. I mean, I perform, you know, victimhood and strength depending on the moment. You know what I mean? You're trying to hail a cab. What kind of Blackness am I performing there? Not too much strength. Not sure how that would read. Not too much victimhood. You want them to know you have money to pay the fare. A lot of things, you know, so it's always gauging, like, how can I best present myself to just accomplish the simple day-to-day tasks. So it's a constantly moving role. You know, it's not a fixed role. Interestingly enough, they say about the play, most plays, I'm in there, and you probably can't tell from this conversation, it's also very funny.
It is. I'm sorry.
No, it's very, very funny. There are a lot of jokes in the play. The actors say that on any given night, they don't know where exactly the jokes are going to land. Usually after a month running a play, month or two, they've been running it for quite some time now, the actors know where the jokes are going to land, and so they can pause and let the laughter happen. And here they say, night to night, we don't know what people are going to laugh at.
Why do you think that is?
I think because we're alive. I mean, aren't we?
We are.
Okay. So I think then that different audiences, different age groups, different demographics, whatever, they find different things funny and appealing or frightening, or it's a very live, it's live, it's theater, it's live action.
Well, it's also, I mean, was it a deliberate choice to have the lights are up in the audience for a lot of
From some of it, yeah.
And I wonder about how much people in the audience, how conscious we are of each other and whether you want us to be.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's in the Ansbacher Theater. For those of you who've been in the public theater, if you saw Top Dog, Underdog in the Ansbacher, a lot of my plays are done in that space. And it's what I call 3 sides live, kind of like this, with the audience wrapping around the stage so we can see each other. And that's part of the show. We can watch each other. Because again, we start with the character sitting in a red chair, much like the audience. The majority of the audience members, the chairs are red.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think there's a difference in white, black, whatever your racial position is, and how you receive this play?
Yes, but I think it's not just white, black. It's white, black, over 40, under 20. College people who go to a lot of theater, people who don't. It really, it's not as simple as white, black. It's a living, thing. It's exciting. I mean, it's thrilling because of that. Because we're not just, you can't just sit there. I mean, I can't. As a writer, one would think, oh yeah, right. I side most closely with the person that I most obviously look like, which isn't true necessarily,
Who do you side most with?
Well, I'm right in the middle of all these 4 characters. I agree with all of them, which is what made the play so difficult to write and so much fun to write too.
Well, and on that, so
Yeah.
we talked about performing blackness, but I
Right.
also, it feels like there's a lot of performing whiteness.
Right.
Also
Right.
with Ralph and Dawn's characters.
Right.
And it almost, they seem to have a similar tension. Is this true? Whereby Dawn is sort of performing what she thinks is a proper liberal white person,
Right.
and Ralph doesn't seem to buy their performance for himself as much. What's going on with that?
Well, I think I think with all characters and with all people, there's a moment when the performance breaks down, and you realize you're behaving in a certain way in order to get something, and then you realize one day that just won't work for you anymore. And that's what happens to the characters over the course of the play. They become real, which means things become difficult. And so the conversations that they used to paper over and decide not to have because they were kind of awkward, right? They start having. And that's where the tension comes from. They just start saying things that they're feeling, which I think is ultimately good. And like I said, the real work starts at the end of the play.
Well, it's where it gets quite dark too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a master-slave relationship.
At the end of the play, though.
Yes,
At the
but
end,
even
we're not.
before that, I mean, as
Yeah.
the secrets start coming out and
Sure.
the tensions start coming out,
Sure.
and I couldn't help but think about, and I know James Baldwin has been a big part of
Yeah,
your life,
right.
and I
He was my
could-
writing teacher in college.
which I mean,
Yeah, I know. I know. So he gave me a sword, and I gotta use it, baby.
it's just what kind of world? What a
Yeah.
beautiful world.
Yeah.
James Baldwin and Suzan-Lori Parks sitting in a room thinking about writing. I'd like to be there.
He's a great teacher, actually.
But I kept thinking about his novel Another Country.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And which is all about interracial relationships, or not all about, but it's
Yeah.
and it's quite, to me, it's one of his darkest works,
Right.
because it seems to posit that at least at the time, the effort to be intimate of any kind, friendships,
Right.
family,
Right.
sexually, across racial lines, would literally kill everybody involved. And this was. What are we to take from your vision about interracial intimacy from this play? Because it becomes quite fraught.
Yeah, it's work. It takes real work. But we're living. We're alive. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I'm the kind of person who relishes work. I do a lot of, which is why I have these tattoos on my arm. They're Sanskrit. I do a lot of yoga, and one of the main tenets of yoga is svadhyaya, which is self-study. And so I've been doing yoga for years and years and years, and we hold that as one of our, as cornerstones, that I will look at myself and examine myself and ask myself, who am I really and what am I really doing? And really work toward self-knowledge and self-awareness instead of just, pointing the finger at them over there who must be the problems of all our bad stuff. That's some bullshit to my mind. I think, wokeness begins here, and it's not something that I need to point at someone. So it's just my thing. So I relish that. I relish that challenge. And I think interracial love, my husband's a white guy. Hi, honey.
He's a very charming man. I met him backstage.
But he's more than just a white guy. Jesus, that's horrible. He's an awesome person, but it takes work. It takes work. It's like you want to work at this. We want to say, hey, okay, we're not all the same. And that's what makes, to my mind, this country truly great. They were actually, and even sisters together. It's like, just because we're both sisters doesn't mean we don't have any conversations, right? We need to have some conversations. We need to, there's so much work to be done. Okay, I'm going to not get on my soapbox.
We're actually here for you to be on your soapbox.
Okay, okay, I'll just say one thing. Sisters and brothers, we are, like Misha says, we have been trained by the system not to support each other. And I think we need to start supporting each other now, right now. I have a really good friend who's an awesome writer who is Asian American, specifically Korean American. And she said that when what's that cool film that just came out? Crazy Rich Asians came out. She was part of and she's a high up writer in television. And she said that a whole bunch of Asian American folks, high ups in the entertainment industry, came together and had like a luncheon and said, hey, let us support each other. And I was like, fucking A. Black folks are like, hey, wait till they cross the street. I'm going to try to cut them. What's going on? So, but we've been rewarded for that behavior historically. And we're doing what we've learned. It's not some corrupt thing that we have. It's something that we've learned to do, something that we've been rewarded to do. And we can do better than that. And it's hard because we have habits that have been rewarded, but I think we can do better. So that's one of my things. That has nothing to do with the play, I don't think. But
maybe it's in there.
Maybe it's in there.
I promise to take. Time always goes fast. I promise to take 2 rounds of questions. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to give you an opportunity if you have questions about. Let's talk about white noise now, and then we'll come back to some broader questions later. So. Get your hand up if you have something to ask, and if not, I'll plow forward.
I'll just
and
say
while we're
something
doing
about the characters' names, which is why I got turtle mixed up with frog. Can I say?
Yes.
So the characters' names. The characters' names are Leo, Dawn, Misha, and Ralph. Anybody ever heard of the Ninja Turtles? Right. Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael. So that's where I got their names from. And I realize that I tell myself these dumb jokes before I dive deep. And when I find myself laughing, it's ha 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 ha. Oh shit, here I go. Whoosh, down into a deep, difficult place.
Right.
And the laughter is like a lure that hooks me and drags me down. So.
Anyone here? I think we have one in the middle.
Yeah,
I think there's somebody with a mic.
With the yellow beret.
And we'll take a couple, and then we'll come back and take some more at the end.
Yeah, hi. Hello, I love.
Oh, you have it written down. Oh,
I
right
do.
On.
So when writing this play, did you find relevant or consider at all the consumption by adjacent minorities, both those who identify with